Well, welcome to the week 2 recording for game design. And you can see that week 2 runs from August 19th to the 23rd. And just like I told you in week 1, I'll always list the announcements, or in the announcements, I'll list the week's work. I've been really happy with the work that students have been submitting. Most of you are right on track. In fact, I have some students that have 100% for week 1, many students in 90s. Please remember that you can revise work. So if you turn something in, you get 18 out of 20 on it. Look at the feedback. In the feedback, I tell you what you need to fix, get it fixed, and resubmit the work. So keep working well, and I look forward to your work coming in for this week. Now, week 2 is we're getting into the game elements unit. And a game elements unit is actually going to cover week 2 and week 3. So if I move down a little bit, you'll see here's the game elements unit. There's week 2 right in here, and then week 3 is going to be section C, D, and E. So let's go look at the assignment. So I'll click the plus sign. And this is a fairly short week, so if you don't have work finished from last week, you can get that submitted. And I might even, by Wednesday, I might even have week 3 stuff up, so maybe you can work ahead to week 3 if you want to. So taking a look at this in the game elements unit, on Tuesday you're going to watch the recording, which you're doing now. Then you'll do the write-up, of course. And then for this week, or for Tuesday, you're going to do the introduction to game elements and section A. You're going to do an assignment called the Analyzing Game Elements assignment, and I'll talk about that shortly. Then you'll go over the quiz preview. Then you do the gameplay quiz, and you're going to skip the discussion they have. We're not doing the discussions that are embedded in the course. Then on Thursday, you'll go over section B in this unit. And really, section B is just looking at information. There's no work to be done in section B, and then you could submit any work from week 1 and resubmit work. So a fairly easy week. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And just as a reminder, of course, the lesson recordings I'll have posted here. All right, getting into week 2. So as I said, we're in the game elements unit, so I'll click on game elements at the left. And of course, whenever you click on these units, the first thing that comes up is the introduction part. And then you get into sections A, section B, etc. Now, what we always want to do whenever I give you these lesson recordings, I always want to show you the write-up. And I use the write-up as a way to guide me through these recordings. So let's go look at the week 2 write-up. And remember how to do the write-ups. To do the write-ups, all you do is copy and paste this stuff. So all you have to do is just copy and paste this information. Don't copy these directions up here. So you paste this into a word processor. Then you have this in the word processor. Then you watch this recording. And when I come to an answer, pause the recording and then go into your word processor and type the answer in. Type the answer in, right at the end of the item or below the item. So write your answers directly below each item, and when you're finished with all that, make sure you check your spelling, grammar, and everything. Then I would suggest you save this file. Of course, you don't turn the file in, but save it just in case it doesn't work right when you copy and paste it. So I would just save this as week 2 write-up. And then finally, after you do that, then you copy and paste everything that you've written down, all the questions and answers, and you paste that in the Dropbox. You do not attach a file. So again, you do not attach a file, but I'm just suggesting you save it as a file just so you'll have it for future use. In case something happens technology-wise, then you'll have all your answers. Okay, the introductory session, or section. What will you study in this unit? And the Analyzing Game Elements assignment, how many games do you play and how do you submit it? So let's go right back here. So here we are. So game design. In game design, we're going to start learning about the gaming elements and what goes into making a good game. And this starts talking about different concepts for games. And like concepts of video games, they might seem complex on the surface, but if you break them down, they're pretty simple, and then they have a bunch of different elements. So in this unit, we're going to look at different elements of gaming and the influence of those elements on gaming. So that's what we're going to do in this unit, the different elements of gaming and the influence of those elements on game design. And you're going to learn the different game elements that make up a game, describe and analyze the nature of gameplay, understand, differentiate between generations of games, know different gaming platforms, and look at game plots and goals. So that's for the whole unit, all of this. But of course, we're not doing all that for week 2. So right here is the answer to the first class connector write-up question. So that's the introduction part. Now you also have this assignment called Analyzing Game Elements, and in this assignment you're going to think about game elements that you learned out back in week 1, and those are like directions, instructions, characters, those different game elements. And what you're going to do is you're going to play some games online. So use the links below or find 3 other games. You can find your own games to analyze with, but they must be free online games because I want to be able to look at those to see that you've played them. So they've given you some samples here. You're free to use other online games if you want to. Play the 3 games or feel free to find other games. Then you're going to analyze the elements of each game. So you're going to play 3 games, and you're going to use this worksheet. So I'll click on this worksheet, and it's a Word document. And if you look at this worksheet, as it comes up here, so here's this worksheet. So as you look at it, you're going to put the name of whichever game you played right here, and you can put the web link. And of course, when you go to the game online, you just go to the top of the browser, highlight all the information, and you can paste it right in here for the link. And you're going to rate these things with 0 meaning poor, 5 meaning excellent for each of these games. So if this first game you play, if you think the story is excellent, you could highlight the number 4, and you could maybe make that bold, or you can give it a different color for your answer, whatever you want to do. So you go through each of the 3 games. So there's the first game you'll do. So you'll think about the story, the characters, the challenges and strategies, the rules. And then you'll do an overall impression. So you're going to write up some stuff about it. And I want more than just 1 sentence in this. So that's the first game. There's the second game. And then finally there's the third game. So you'll do 3 games. And then you'll do File, Save As, and just save that in your game design folder, and I would call it Analyzing Game Elements. Analyzing Game Elements assignment. Oh, you know exactly what it is in case you have to refer to it again. So you just type it, Analyzing Game Elements, and then save it in your game design folder. So that's the work you'll do. Let's go back to our screen here. So that answers a couple of the Class Connect write-up questions. And when you turn that in, you can just turn it in as an attached document in the Dropbox. Okay, so let's go back to the write-up. So we answered those 2 questions. And of course, you submit it by turning in the completed worksheet. Okay, section A. What are the 2 parts of your brain that you engage when you play video games? What does it mean the gameplay design starts from the top and moves down? What are the 3 elements of gameplay in Super Mario Brothers that made it addictive? So now I'm going here to section A. And section A starts talking about how you interact with games physically. Whoops. Oh, looks like I lost my connection. Let's hope it comes back up here. So section A, here we go. So we're going to think about the physical part of gaming and how your brain works. So this talks about gaming and how Charles Darwin talked about how young animals, puppies, how they play together. And gaming is an important part of human life and how we live. So if we go down here, not just humans play games, but animals play games too. But humans, we play obviously higher level games. And why do we need to play games? Well, the human brain needs it because games can help the brain develop. It can also gameplay fascinates us, and gaming is a fun subject, but it's not all about pumping adrenaline and sweaty palms. In gameplay, there's some brain development and brain experiments behind it. And when you're in gaming, you use your cerebrum and your cerebellum, different parts of your brain. So the cerebrum is what takes care of the cognitive aspects or your thought processes. Cerebellum is actions. So imagine when you're playing a game, your brain, the cerebrum, you think about what you want to do, and then the cerebellum makes your fingers do those actions. So those are the two different parts of the brain that operate when you're playing a game. Oh man. Hope that doesn't keep happening. This is not going to be good, is it? Okay, we're connecting now. Okay, there was a slight delay there to get my internet back up, but I think we're fine now. The recording shouldn't have been affected. So anyway, there are two parts of the brain that get affected when you're playing games. So now in this section, we're going to look at gameplay and its elements, apply gameplay to game design. So let's look at this gameplay and designing. So they talk about strategy and arcade games that are built on logic and cognition, while shooting and racing games are more about reflexes, right? So different games cause you to use different parts of your brain, different parts of your body. At the onset, it says the most important elements of gameplay seem to be visuals. But in reality, there is much more important stuff or other things that are equally important, not only how the game looks. So a lot of thought has to go into things that really you just can't see in a game, like the story and how the controller works and different things like that. So there are things that designers have to think about that go beyond just the way the game looks. So basic gameplay can be designed like in real life. Like in real life, when you're little, when you're a toddler, life is simple, right? Well, that's how a game is. Most games start off pretty simple. But then in life, as you move through junior high school, adulthood, etc., life gets more difficult. You have higher goals you want to accomplish. Well, same thing with games, right? As you move through games, you get greater goals that you want to accomplish. So that's what a game designer has to do. Game designer has to keep you interested in the game as the game moves along. And ultimately, the events of the story lead to an accomplishment of a final goal, whatever that is, depending on the game. Now, the way the games are designed is gameplay starts from the top and moves its way down. And what that means is that you start with the goals, like you start with your ending goal. Then you design the steps to get there to keep people interested. So that's what it means, how it starts from the top and moves down. Start with the goal and then add components to make the game interesting and keep people engaged in the game. Super Mario Brothers. This talks all about Super Mario and the player takes the role of Mario or Luigi and you race through Mushroom Kingdom. Many of you have played Super Mario or you've seen people play it, and you collect coins along the way. They can get some powers and abilities. All of those types of things are parts of Super Mario, so we're analyzing that game a little bit. And of course, if Mario takes a hit or the time runs out, then you fall into the pit, you lose a turn. Start over at that level. So you know how Super Mario works, and there are checkpoints along the way. And as you go through the world, then there are fewer checkpoints, even no checkpoints in some places. So that's how Super Mario works. You can see if you analyze Super Mario, and here you can go play it a little bit, just to get the idea of how Super Mario runs. And this is online Super Mario. So go play it if you're not familiar or if you haven't played it for a while, because the next page you're going to analyze different parts of it. So let's look at Super Mario to analyze it. So, what is the goal of Super Mario? So to save the princess. How's the player's interest held throughout the game? Well, the answer could be different for different people because you're interested in different things, but increasing challenges might be of interest to some people. Collecting things might be interest. The higher achievement gets higher reward, so those might be things that could keep your interest. What would make more advanced player interested in this game? Well, you could have adding levels of difficulty to the game would make more advanced players more interested in playing it, right? It would likely take you a while to play this game through its end, but what do you think the later levels would be like? So you can kind of think about what the later levels might be like. And finally, is there one game design element more important than the other? No. I mean, each game design element has its own part in the game to make it what it is. Now, the reason you need to think about these questions is these are the things that you will run through your mind as you do that one assignment and as you start designing your own game or thinking about your own game. So Super Mario Brothers had a lot of different elements to it, but really there are three main things, like the plot was good, the difficulty increased as the game progressed, and there are challenges at each level. So these three things made Super Mario addictive. Now when you start thinking about designing your own game pretty soon, you're going to want to keep those types of things in mind to keep people engaged in the game. Elements of gameplay. What you're going to do is go through this activity, and when you go to this, what you'll do is you'll drag these things to where you think they fit. So if you think challenge is the number one component of a game, put it there. So do those things, put them in terms of importance, then hit the checkbox and see what the answers are. See how close you get. Okay, elements of gameplay quiz. So of course that's right over here, elements of gameplay quiz. As always, before the quizzes, look at the quiz previews, and for game elements unit, since there are only 3 quizzes, I put all the quiz previews in one document. So here's the preview for elements of gameplay quiz. So I put all the quiz previews in one document for this game elements unit. Okay, back to the write-up. So we answered all 3 of these questions as we went through section A. Now we're going into section B. 3 examples of ways to keep players interested in a game. In goal setting, what is the common structure of all games? Give an example of a sub-goal you might find in a car racing game. This 2 ways difficulty level cause changes in gameplay. So now we're into section B. So in section B, first it talks about Michael Jordan. He does a slam dunk and everybody in the stadium goes crazy. And of course it's all a part of a process, right? So that could have been his goal, but it started out with a team meeting before the game. So what this is trying to do is to talk about setting goals and how goals start out early on. So in game designing, different ways to keep somebody's interest. Increase challenges as the level progresses. Have different things to collect along the way. Or the higher achievement gets higher rewards. So those are 3 ways that you could keep somebody's interest in games. So in this section, we're going to look at the importance of plots and goals, analyze winning and losing conditions in games. So setting goals. Now all games use a common structure. There's an ultimate goal, but then there are sub-goals that have to be achieved to get to the ultimate goal. So for instance, if you're playing a soccer game, and let's say you're playing a baseball game, video baseball game, and as your team scores runs, those are goals, right? Those are sub-goals, scoring runs. But then scoring the more runs than the other team by the end of the game, that's the ultimate goal. So the sub-goals are smaller goals within the game. And here's an example. It talks about car racing. And those of you that don't know about car racing, in car races, as you run out of fuel or your tires get bad, you have to do what's called a pit stop, where you would get more fuel or get new tires. So like in this goal, in a car game, of course the top goal is going across the finish line first, right? But there are many goals along the way, these sub-goals. So an example of a sub-goal in a car racing would be that if you have a really good pit stop, maybe you get some bonus points. So that's a sub-goal along the way to the ultimate goal. So a racing game, a sub-goal would be having a good pit stop, then the ultimate goal would be finishing in first place, obviously. So for game designer, you have to set the goals so it intrigues the audience, so it makes the audience want to keep playing the game. Attaining goals, so getting from different levels, from novice to expert and all that. So as you attain the goals, most all games have levels of difficulty, range from novice to expert. Novice the easiest, expert would be the hardest. Of course, in some games you could choose which level you start with, right? You can choose which level you start with, or as you play the game, you end up getting a higher expert level, a higher level. So you start as a novice, but as you go through things, then you end up being determined as an expert game player. And you read down here, it talks about what happens when you get to be expert. When you get to be expert in some games, like in a car racing game, the opponents might go faster, or in a shooting game, it might be harder to find the enemy as you move up to be an expert. And of course, many games, you get to be the boss level, which is the toughest level. And in that one, you might find some cheats and walkthroughs that can help you out. Setting goals. All games have a finale after the protagonist completes all the sub-levels, meaning that some final accomplishment they have to do. And sometimes, of course, you have all these defeats that are designed to hurt you. Not well physically, but mentally, to kind of put you down and drag you down a little bit before you get to that ultimate goal in a game. And then finally, as you look down below, you finally get that feeling of accomplishment once you complete the game and reach the dramatic end to whatever the game might be. This is about goal setting in games. You can go play this game, but you're not going to do any work on it, but go play it. It's kind of a cool game. Discussion you're not going to worry about. Then the goal setting quiz. So I think what I've done is I've gotten rid of the goal setting quiz, so you don't have to do the goal setting quiz, so you'll skip that. So let's go back to the write-up. Let's see if we answer all these questions. 3 examples of ways to keep players interested in games. In setting goals, what's the common structure? I talked about that. You have subplots or sub-goals leading to the ultimate goal. Give an example of a sub-goal you might find in a car racing game. I showed that to you. List 2 ways that difficulty level causes changes in games. Well, if you go back to section B, there was a part here, I don't remember what page it was on, but it talked about difficulty levels and how games could change with difficulty levels. So right in here, this talks about how games can change with difficulty levels. So you might find a couple of examples there. So that's all for this week. So if I go back to course home and I look at week 2, for this week you're going to do this write-up. You're going to do the assignment analyzing game elements, turning that into the Dropbox. You're going to do the game elements quiz preview, game elements quiz, and then you're going to review section B. And then return and work from week 1 if you haven't done it. So week 2 is pretty simple. Then week 3 will be covering section C, D, and E of the game elements unit. So that's all I have for you. I look forward to your work coming in. Again, this is a pretty quick week. I bet you can knock this week out in an hour at the most. And by Wednesday, I'll try to get week 3 put in, so you could go ahead and get week 3 done this week possibly, which will be, again, the game elements unit. And then week 4, we'll get into the creating content unit. So that's all I have for you. Take care, everybody. I look forward to your work coming in. Bye.